Lord forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack make it backflip. Telly Hank with the action. With the vital speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
When I lost it, it was very, saddening.
At the end of a 6-hour shift driving Uber in Milwaukee, Mohammed Hasib Khan saw his entire day's earnings wiped out in minutes.
Today, we are on a mission to protect your money. If you use mobile payment apps, think Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, they're all popular, then you need to hear about this scam alert.
Yeah, 10 Tampa Bay's Hannah Deneen has been looking into this for us. And Hannah, this appears to be a growing trend.
It is. Those mobile payment apps, they're so easy, convenient for sending and receiving your money just on your phone. But they're also becoming really popular among scammers trying to get into your bank accounts.
Authorities are calling it a double booking bait and switch scam that cashed in $8.5 million, according to a new indictment unsealed on Wednesday. Two men, Shrey Goyal of Miami and Shanique Rahia of Denver, are facing fraud charges for over 10,000 misleading listings on short-term rental sites Airbnb and Vervel.
With the rise of platforms like DoorDash, Uber, Airbnb, Venmo, Cash App, and even Facebook Marketplace, modern convenience has come with a hidden cost, the increased likelihood of falling victim to digital scams. Now, unlike traditional theft, where someone might physically steal a wallet or break into a home, app-based scams allow criminals to target victims remotely, often not leaving a trace of who committed the crime. For example, as you'll see very shortly, DoorDash users would be tricked into providing their login credentials to a person posing as customer support, while Airbnb renters would lose thousands of dollars to fake listings and fraudulent hosts. Similarly, we all know the stories with Venmo and Cash App, with users frequently encountering payment scams. And even good old Facebook Marketplace has become a breeding ground for scams, with counterfeit items and untraceable payment methods being the most common tactics. And these days, these jugs are easier to execute than physical crimes, offering criminals anonymity, scalability, and minimal risk of getting caught, making them a more appealing avenue for theft in the digital age. And the shift from physical to digital crime has been fueled by the widespread trust in app-based platforms and their increasing role in everyday life. Many users perceive these apps as secure, often letting their guard down, unknowingly becoming easy targets for scammers. Unlike traditional theft, where the victim might confront the perpetrator or involve law enforcement, app-based scams are often difficult to trace and prosecute, leaving victims with little recourse. Additionally, the global nature of these platforms enables scammers to target users from anywhere in the world, expanding their reach and the scale of their operations. As society becomes more dependent on these kind of apps for everything from transportation to financial transactions, the risks continue to grow exponentially. In this digital age, the likelihood of being scammed through an app is way, way higher than facing a physical robbery or somebody breaking in your home. Why steal your used TV when we could go on your bank account and buy a new one?
Pandemic
got people used to ordering food and other items, getting them delivered to their doors. So DoorDash drivers stay busy and can make good money.
In tonight's 6 on Your Side report, Mike McKnight tells us that also makes them a target for scams. About 2 weeks ago, Andrew Dempsey started to dash toward a bigger payday.
Way to make some extra money to take care of your family.
But Andrew got a call that an order had been canceled.
The scammer is talking to you saying, hey, that order that you're going on to has been discontinued. You're going to receive full compensation for the delivery.
And the caller told Andrew to click a link, which a veteran dasher says was a rookie mistake.
When you're new and you're confused and it's late at night, you've been dashing all day, you just go, oh, I guess this is the dasher support, you know. I fell for it too, and when I was new.
Scammers fooled Andrew into providing them access to his DoorDash pay account.
My earnings for last week was $1,100. Gone.
Andrew contacted DoorDash corporate to tell them that scammers had bagged his $1,100 paycheck, but DoorDash answered the call and is giving him that $1,100 back as a one-time courtesy. Andrew received an email from DoorDash escalated support that payment for almost $1,100 is on the way as his mentor delivers a message.
DoorDash will never call you. They'll only send you emails or they'll text.
More than 24 deliveries are all in a day's work for Andrew Dempsey, who may drive almost 500 miles a week.
About 10 hours a day.
He's thankful DoorDash picked up the tab for his earnings stolen by scammers, but he doesn't expect the company to eat the loss again.
Learned a hard lesson the hard way. And thanks for DoorDash and taking the stress off of me.
Without DoorDash repaying him the money lost to scammers, Andrew says he would be late paying his bills. On your side in Northwest Omaha, Mike McKnight, 6 News.
DoorDash spokesperson told Mike, quote, this was a sophisticated scam and we're saddened that a dasher was the target. We've reached out to the dasher to offer our support and to help make them whole. We regularly remind dashers to keep their account information secure and that DoorDash will never request their password or security code.
They continued by saying, quote, if a dasher ever receives a request for any of their account details, we urge them not to share and to contact DoorDash support immediately.
A Connecticut man is accused of a cross-country scheme targeting DoorDash drivers in California. Stanford police tell CBS 2's Tony Aiello it delivered nearly $1 million.
The investigation started with a report of a domestic dispute involving a gun at this Stanford apartment building.
We were searching the apartment for the firearm and noticed several stacks of loose cash around the apartment. About 100 payment cards not in the suspect's name or in the victim's name, and a couple of fake IDs.
Investigator Vanessa Lynn says cops eventually found more than $700,000 stuffed in various lockboxes, alleged proceeds of a complex scam targeting DoorDash drivers in California.
You place an order on DoorDash, the driver's information comes up and there's a way to contact them.
Police say 21-year-old David Smith used technology to send text messages to drivers that appeared to come from DoorDash, then convinced drivers to submit login information to an official-looking but fake DoorDash support website, giving him access to drivers' accounts.
And then he would change the banking information that the DoorDash driver had on there for their direct deposits to a payment card that he had fraudulently obtained.
The arrest warrant says the scheme began in 2020 when Smith was just 18. In a statement, DoorDash calls this an egregious and appalling crime. We regularly remind drivers to keep their account information secure and share tips on how to avoid these type of attacks.
Police believe Smith targeted drivers all the way in California, thinking distance would make it harder to investigate the alleged fraud. 700 drivers lost money. The good news is much of that money was recovered, so they can expect at least partial restitution eventually. In Stamford, Tony Aiello, CBS 2 News.
Other news tonight, the former Stamford man who's accused of stealing almost $1 million in an elaborate DoorDash scam was shot to death Monday in New York. This came right before he was due in court in Stamford for a potential resolution in that case. News 12 Connecticut's Marissa Alter with the latest tonight.
David Smith was supposed to appear in Stamford Superior Court Wednesday morning to accept or reject a plea offer in his case. Instead, the state's attorney's office learned Smith was killed 2 days ago. New Rochelle police found David Smith shot several times in the chest Monday morning at the Heritage Homes complex. Police said a personal dispute led to the 22-year-old's death. They've since arrested 4 men in connection.
Community members did help with this, with calls to the police of the shots and descriptions of people running away.
Smith was living in Mount Vernon. He moved there after Stamford police arrested him in June 2023 in what one investigator called the most massive scheme he's seen. Smith is accused of scamming DoorDash drivers in California out of almost $1 million. Investigators recovered a large chunk of it, $733,000 in cash, when they seized 5 safes from his apartment. Police explained how the scam worked. They said Smith would use one of his many phones to place a fake DoorDash order in California. Then when the driver was on the way, Smith would impersonate DoorDash support and claim there was a problem with the order.
He would get them to click a link or go to a website, and then that essentially would turn over their credentials, their username and password, to him. Once he was in control of that, he would change the billing information and steal any funds that they had for deliveries they had done, basically steal their paycheck.
More than 700 drivers were scammed over the course of 2.5 years. Police said Smith also stole the identities of dozens of people to open debit card accounts where he transferred the stolen money. Smith was considering a plea deal in the case at the time of his death. His decision to take the offer or go to trial had been expected at Wednesday's court hearing. The details of the deal weren't made public. As for the over $700,000 in cash that was seized in this case, Stamford police still have that money. What happens to it and whether it will go to all the victims as restitution will be determined at a hearing in March. That's also when the charges against Smith will officially be dismissed. In Stamford, Marissa Alter, News 12.
Now, David Smith's attorney, Frank Riccio, says that he was shocked to learn of his client's death. He told News 12 that, quote, he was a quiet, kind young man who I had the pleasure of knowing. I feel terrible for his family. And he ends with, what a tragedy.
In the summer of 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic pretty much stopping the United States completely, the streets would grow quiet and people will begin to adapt a new normal, with a lot of people's favorite restaurants closing their doors to indoor dining. Places that were bustling with people merely turned to pickup stations, and for many, delivery drivers will become a lifeline. Platforms like DoorDash and Uber Eats would surge in popularity as workers would dash between pickup counters to doorsteps. But in Stamford, Connecticut, a 22-year-old man by the name of David Smith was trying to eat, but he wasn't ordering like everybody else. And somehow he would see the food delivery boom as an opportunity to get money. From his apartment on Prospect Street, David would orchestrate an elaborate phishing scheme that would prey on DoorDash drivers all the way across the country in California, snatching nearly $1 million in the process. And for 3 years, he would operate in the shadows, running a scheme that was so smooth that it would allow him to get 700 delivery drivers without immediate detection. His method was calculated, but his execution was next level, making fake customer support calls from the food service app and counterfeit websites. He would manipulate drivers into giving up their account credentials, giving him access to all the cheese that they made. And when I say smooth, the shit would run super smooth until January 5th, 2023, when the Stamford police would be called to that same apartment on Prospect Street for a domestic violence incident. So, according to the police reports, a pregnant woman who was allegedly living at the apartment with David would accuse him of assaulting her during an argument. As the physical altercation would escalate, she would claim to officers that David used a firearm to intimidate her. Subsequently, responding officers would arrest David on charges of third-degree assault of a pregnant person, risk of injury to a minor, second-degree strangulation, and disorderly conduct. The unknown victim, visibly shaken and concerned for her safety, would make a specific plea to officers. She wanted them to remove that gun involved in the incident from the home. And it would be that request that would start the downfall of David Smith and his foolproof scheme. A search of the apartment would reveal the 9mm handgun in question with an extended 16-round clip. But the gun was only the beginning, boy. Officers would find $52,000 in cash, multiple payment cards in other people's names, forged California driver's license, and several cell phones. I'm sure their immediate thought was drugs, but they was about to see, nigga, this shit different. Later, with a warrant in hand, police would return to that same apartment to conduct a more thorough search. This time, they would uncover an additional $733,000 in cash tucked away in several safes and hidden compartments. And if y'all been tuned in for a minute, y'all pretty much know how this shit go. In June of 2023, 6 months after the domestic situation that would first bring him to local law enforcement's attention, David Smith would be arrested by the FBI's Winchester County Safe Streets Task Force, about 20 miles from Stamford, Connecticut, and Mount Vernon, New York. The arrest will follow a thorough investigation into his operation, I'm sure mainly prompted by the seizure of that large amount of cash. He would be indicted on first-degree larceny, third-degree identity theft, 2 counts of second-degree forgery, trafficking of personal identifying information, and first-degree computer crime. And just me reading out those federal charges, that shit definitely sound like a dub. But in November of 2004, prosecutors would offer him a plea deal, 5 years in prison in exchange for a guilty plea. I never really Monday morning quarterback because hindsight is 20/20, but he probably definitely should have took that deal for more reasons than because it was sweet. But confident that he could negotiate a better outcome or fight the charges in court, David would decline the offer, and a court date would be set for January 8th, 2025. And in the months leading up to his court date, David will remain out on bond, preparing to make that decision. But just 2 days before he was scheduled to appear in court on January 6, 2025, David, now 22 and living in Mount Vernon, New York, would be found shot to death 3 miles away from Mount Vernon at the Heritage Home Complex on Rhodaquash Lane in New Rochelle. Police would be called to the scene shortly after 11 a.m. and find David with multiple gunshot wounds to his chest, with responding officers providing aid before he would be transported to the hospital, where he would be eventually pronounced dead. Now, within days of his death, police would arrest 4 suspects in connection with the killing. 21-year-old Ali Muhammad of Mount Vernon would be identified as the gunman and be charged with second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon. 2 others, 21-year-old Marquise Williamson of Newark, New Jersey, and Mary O'Neill, 21, also of Mount Vernon, were both charged with second-degree murder as well. A 4th suspect by the name of Anthony Webster, 20, from Mount Vernon, would be charged with second and third-degree possession of a weapon. Now, one of the first things that would stand out to me as I first read all of that information was neither him or none of the suspects actually from New Rochelle, where the crime would occur, which almost instantly makes me think or question, how did all of these individuals cross paths with David Smith, a former Stanford resident who had recently moved to Mount Vernon? I'm sure from trying to duck the heat from being on the local news, and probably if he was smart, he knew the feds was coming eventually. And the other thing that stood out was all of them other niggas was younger than him. So it may be just me, but when I put that with the randomness of the location of his murder, hold up, this shit smell like a setup, cuz. According to court documents, the suspect not only killed David, but they also robbed him, taking his phone, credit cards, and keys. Webster would allegedly hold a gun to David's head during the robbery, which would eventually escalate to the fatal shooting. In a news release, police would say they believed that the dispute stemmed from a personal disagreement over money. Wow, I ain't see that coming. Now, we don't cover these situations every day, but I definitely feel like I done seen enough cases to know that anytime a big time scam, insurance, credit card fraud, PPP, and large sums of money nearby, the jack boys and the jackers ain't gonna be too far. Now, y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all pop out down here with me and y'all let me know how y'all think this shit played out. And did he not have the foolproof scam with that shit clicking for 3 years straight with no hiccups? And while y'all down here, y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to tell, what we missed, what we got wrong and all that. Y'all make sure y'all tapping with me directly on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until our next jug, y'all know how we run it over here. It's Shades Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.